everyone. Happy Wednesday. This is Madison with Health by Ratio. I'm the founder of Health by Ratio, and my team and I of functional movement coaches, as well as licensed physical therapists, orthopedic movement specialists, even nutritional coaches, all of us work in unison as a team with our clients 100% online in teaching them how to correct imbalances throughout their entire body that are impacting chronic aches and pains and injuries that these people have been dealing with for a long time. We teach them how to correct the entire body from head to toe so that they can get back to moving in full range of stable motion and get back to whatever activities they love to do. And one of those activities that we work so much with many of our clients is running. It's a really popular thing that a lot of people love to do or love to hate to do it, that kind of thing. And so we work a ton with runners because obviously chronic pains and injuries around running kind of go hand in hand. And also because a lot of what we do is not just on the rehabilitation side, but a lot of what we do is on the performance side. So we get runners that come to us and other athletes and other walks of life as well that want to get faster, they want to get more powerful, they want to get stronger and that kind of thing. So they don't just want to be healthy, they want to also perform at a higher level. And so we work with them in not only rehabilitating around injuries, but we correct their body and movement patterns so they become more efficient and more powerful in the ways that their body moves. So with our runners, a huge aspect of what we do is running gait coaching. So we analyze their running gait, we give them proper warm-ups, cues to be focusing on while they're running, as well as cool downs to do to help mitigate any imbalances that might be occurring. And then we cultivate reconditioning programs that they do in about 15 to 20 minutes a day to correct these imbalances and strengthen up their body the right way so that they move it differently and more effectively when they hit the road or hit the trail and they get to their running. So this is really common for a lot of our runners. Like we have some runners like Nell, for instance, who's dealing with perineal tendinosis. And then we had Orly dealing with like chronic IT band issues as an ultramarathon runner. We had Lindsay training for, I believe, a half marathon, dealing with chronic hip flexor pains and sorenesses. So they came to us not just wanting to deal with those pains and get those things feeling better, but they also did it for the purpose of wanting to improve their actual running speed. Now, when we're talking about improving running speed, there's obviously quite a few things out there that we can talk about. And so I'm going to kind of go over real fast the really common things that many of us are familiar with. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on those, but I'm going to talk about some of the nitty-gritty things that we've noticed when we analyze our clients' running gait that aren't so often talked about. So I'll talk about those in just the next couple of minutes. So first and foremost, for those runners out there that are trying to get a little bit faster, you've probably Googled it and probably read or talked to maybe some coaches and you've heard a couple of things. Like one of them is just increasing your stride speed, your cadence of how frequently your feet are hitting the ground. We hear that 180 strides per minute. Like that's a common number that we're always talking about, is increasing your strides so your foot turnover is a little bit quicker. That might have to do with reducing your stride length. That might have to do with you going from a more of a heel strike to a forefoot strike, that kind of thing. But it often, like, I'm not going to go like crazy in terms of cadence. That thing's something like, there's a lot of great apps out there that you can use that like recreate kind of like a metronome so you can kind of match your foot to the cadence of the metronome. I highly recommend those. But like increasing your running cadence, it has to do with how your core is activated, how what your lean forward angle is. All that kind of stuff. If you've never found out about running, never heard about running cadence, Google it. There's a million blogs and articles and YouTube videos out there, and you can get a better understanding of that whole 180 strides per minute. Now, I will say that 180 is not the magic number. It does vary from person to person, but you'll see that number a lot. But it definitely does depend on the size of the person and how they run. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Then the next one that we often hear about is actually taking a look at how long your foot is in contact with the ground. Normally they talk about 0.03 of a millisecond or quicker is the ideal amount. So meaning you're touching the ground and coming off of that ground with your foot strike in less than 1/3 of a second is what we're trying to do. And so that again has to do kind of hand in hand with the foot turnover, and has to do with whether you're striking with the heel and the foot is landing heavy and slowly coming off, or whether it's landing a little bit more toward midfoot or forefoot strike and bouncing off a little bit quicker. So that's another thing that's really common, and they kind of go hand in hand with your stride cadence. So again, there's a lot on that, so I'm not going to cover that too much, but both of those things do improve our running speed a bit when you do them correctly, and something that we absolutely coach our clients through. Another thing that we hear is like how to train. We hear interval training is a really common one. Just do interval training. I love to hate this recommendation, because for those of us that are running inefficiently and have some aches and pains around our running, to the idea of just increasing the intensity of how we run to get faster isn't necessarily the ideal scenario. It's like, oh, you want me to just push harder into the thing that already hurts and just that's going to make me faster? I don't know if that one's great. But if you already run perfectly and you're literally just needing like a bolster in fitness, you need to improve your VO2, you need to get your endurance levels improved in a nutshell, then yeah, interval training is amazing. Push that, try to push your speed for a good minute or two, and then ease up and go either down to a walk or a really light jog for a minute or two, and go through those sequences, or go through hill intervals and that kind of stuff, and push it for a period of time, and then reduce it for a period of time. That's a great way, just on the pure fitness side, to improve it. But if you have some actual running gait deviations, if you have some imbalances throughout the body that are making an impact, and it's really easy to tell if you do, because often that means that some parts of the body start hurting, like my right knee is my problem child, or I got plantar fasciitis on my left foot, or my right big toe is driving me crazy, or my right IT band, or my left hip flexor, or my left SI joint, lower side of the back, that area. Like if you got some aches and pains throughout the body that randomly show up in and around your runs, there's a really good chance that we have some imbalances that are impacting us, and that it's probably changing the way our running stride is actually hitting the ground, and it's making us less efficient. So if we can correct these imbalances, like our clients like Orly, and like our clients like Lindsay, and like our clients like Nell have done, then we kill two birds with one stone. We not only reduce those like that pain, that chronic pain, and kind of recurring injuries that we keep tweaking, we fix that, and we also make ourselves more efficient, which is awesome, right? We kill two birds with one stone. So what we often see when we're analyzing our clients and the common deviations is, one, the tendency for us to pronate. We tend to often, due to, it normally stems for most people from the actual hip itself, due to poor hip extension, and that can stem from the actual abdomen and how it's releasing and how we're breathing through our diaphragm. It can come from the hip flexor itself, and tightnesses that accrue from the hip flexors into the quads, all kinds of stuff. But with lack of hip extension, we won't kick the leg straight back, but instead as we kick back, we turn the foot out a little bit to the side. And that means when we come over and we come to plant in front, we will often strike with that heel a little bit more to the inside. And then as we step through, we kind of roll that ankle to the inside. That's called pronation. And so what's happening when we pronate there is we end up shutting off, by and large, our glute complex, and specifically the glute medius doesn't stabilize. It puts a heck of a lot more tension in the knee and in the hip itself when it goes like this. But we miss the recruitment of the glute. And many of us as runners, that's one of the big things we're always told about, is use your glutes, get your glutes stronger, and use those glutes to propel you. That's your most important muscle in your body. But that's easier said than done. We think about the glutes, but then all we do is feel the quads and the hamstrings the whole time. And we're thinking about the glutes, and they don't fire. Well, that's because you have some literal physical restrictions that are causing you to not even allow that glute to fire. And one of those things is going to be when we pronate. Because as we pronate, this knee goes a little bit to the inside. That ends up turning on all of my quad complex to my adductors. So this whole area, the thigh to the inside of the knee, ends up having to overcompensate. The glute shuts off in that moment. And then as I'm extending through, I'm getting the drive from the quad itself and not as much recruitment from the glute itself. And then the hamstring turns on as I bend the knee, and then I step forward, and then the quad takes over again. So we end up getting, and I should also say the hip flexor is involved in driving that leg forward too. So we end up getting all this extra recruitment from our quads, we get all this extra recruitment from our hip flexors, and we get a little bit of extra recruitment from the hamstrings, and we get very little from the glutes themselves, which is the biggest, most important freaking muscle in our body. And that thing is supposed to be the main driver as we are running. So we're missing out on the most powerful muscle that can get us to propel forward. And instead, we put all this extra tension around the hips and the knee and the quads. And even also, I should mention that also we try to end up pushing way more into our plantar flexor muscles, like our calves and our soleus, that impacts the Achilles and the actual plantar fascia line a little bit more. So we put way more pressure and recruitment into these guys as opposed to this big, powerful butt. So if we can fix why that pronation is occurring, then we end up being able to recruit that glute much better, and we get a lot more power from what the body already has in it. So that's one aspect of it. Now, with pronation often also comes the tendency for the foot and or the arms to cross midline when we're running. So as we run, in theory, we should have, like, let's say if I'm straddling my yoga mat right now, we should have the foot line up underneath our hip with each stride. So I should be able to straddle this line as I'm moving front and back. Oh, well, obviously if I'm running, I'm not going backwards, but I should be able to straddle this line as I'm going. But if we record your running gait and analyze, often what we find is many people cross the midline a little bit. So as they're stepping forward, their heel will drop and cross over that center line of their body. And then the next one comes and it drops to there. And often one side does it a little bit more than the other. We have one hip that's a little bit less, is a little bit tighter, a little bit rotated in a different way. And so that foot might cross midline a little bit more than the other one does. And that foot also might pronate a little bit more than the other one does. This has to do with some imbalances from side to side. But when that foot crosses midline, it again shuts off that glute complex. And it also often affects the upper body, where we'll see instead of someone driving their arms more straight forward, straight backwards, it's not literally forward backwards, there's a little bit of an angle inwards when we're pumping the arms, but relatively speaking, arms are staying to either side of the chest to all of a sudden where we start getting arms crossing midline. And we might see one side crossing more, while the other one is more pumping straight ahead. So we get this imbalance. So now all of a sudden, not only am I not recruiting my glutes, but I have these little subtle forces that are shifting me more sideways. I'm getting more of a lateral motion. And so in a very subtle way, I am wasting energy production in having me try to go a little bit side to side, and then my body's trying to counterbalance that, and it's wasting force and energy that could just be driving me straight ahead in the direction that I'm running if I had everything lined up the way that I want. So learning how to keep the feet in line with the hips is a really important thing. So we teach a lot of our runners that have this imbalance to run along a line, or to envision a line that they're straddling, and don't allow the foot to cross that midline. And we often start with just working on their walking gait and teaching them how to do this walking, because it's goofy. If you naturally do this, it's also going to occur when you walk. So trying to do that, it'll almost, if you just straddle a line, it's almost going to feel like you're stepping sideways as you walk down. It's kind of a goofy sensation there. So it's easier to do this while walking and try to figure out what it feels like to keep the feet in line with the hips. You're going to feel a difference in how the glutes and the core fire there, or you might feel a big lack of engagement on one side versus better on the other. That'll kind of really make you aware of where your imbalances are. And then as you get better at this drill, that allows you to actually drive straight forward, straight backwards, using your obliques, using your glute medius, using your glute complex, period. And then all of a sudden we got way more efficient at moving straight ahead. And now we aren't pronating as much. We're not crossing midline with our feet. We're not pumping our arms side to side, wasting force. We're driving forward and we're using this big, powerful butt to propel us forward. Now, sometimes, like with our clients, like I said, this kills two birds with one stone. This is going to make us feel a lot better. We're going to have a lot less tension in and around the knees and in and around the hips, even in and around the back, especially in and around the feet and ankles, because we're not pronating and kind of tweaking them sideways and all that good stuff. We're not collapsing the arches over and over and over again, tweaking and over-aggravating that plantar fascial line. So there's a lot of things that get solved here when we correct it, but it always improves running speed at the same time. Sometimes that mileage split improves by 10, 20 seconds, which is great. That's not like massive improvements, but it's good. It makes you more efficient. Or you might be someone like Nell who's running, her mileage splits were somewhere around the 9.5 minute mark. And when she corrected her running gait and addressed that perineal that was aggravating her, she's now running 8-minute splits. She's cut off a minute to a minute and a half on average from what she was running before. Like, that's an insane increase, but it's not uncommon. And that's all because of just getting more efficient. And that stems from, yes, your stride cadence. It stems from your foot strike position itself and with that turnover. And it has to do with being able to push into some interval training when your body's ready for it. But way more importantly, it's getting your body's running gait in alignment. Getting your body into a position where your core can stabilize the way that it needs and using your biggest, most powerful muscle, your glutes, properly. So that has to do with correcting these imbalances that are preventing us from doing that the right way. If we have some literal physical range of motion restrictions and or some strength limitations, that's going to cause us to compensate and bring that ankle across or pronate that ankle, or for us to cross the body, for us to use the quads and the hip flexors more than actually the big butt muscle. So all of that to say, if you guys want some one-on-one help in understanding where these imbalances are coming from, you're hearing me talk and you're like, yeah, I get some random aches in my hip, or I get some random stuff in my back, or my foot is aggravating me when I run or whatever, and I want to heal those things, and I want to be able to improve with my running and enjoy it without feeling like I'm getting a knife stuck in my hip every time I do that, well then we'd love to help you guys. Just like we started with all of our clients, we offer 2 free consultation calls. We do an initial call over the phone. It's quick. It's about a 20-minute call or so for us to download with you guys and figure out what it is that you've been dealing with. We want to ask you questions on what techniques you currently do, what your routine is, what's helped you, what hasn't, and get on the same page with where you want to go. And then we very quickly set you up with another complimentary call. It's over video, and where you and I connect and we go through a number of big full body patterns, and we see how this body is moving from head to toe and analyze this thing and where its imbalances are occurring. And then on that call, we not only talk about how and why the body's doing what it's doing, but we literally create a game plan together on what you can do yourself to correct your body. And if it works out that you want to work with our team to do so, awesome, that's great. And we'd be happy to work with you if we're a good fit. But if not, then that's totally fine too. The purpose of those calls is a service call to give you guys some great understandings of this body and have a game plan going forward that you can get it correcting and moving the way that you want to. So we'll attach a link that gives you access to our calendar, and you can pick a time that works best for you. And we can't wait to meet with you. Or feel free, if you have any questions for us, if you want us to expand on anything, or maybe you want to find out a little bit more on the running cadence, or or you want to find out a little bit more about your foot strike positioning and all that kind of stuff, then feel free, ask away, or something else altogether, totally random. Could be not to do with running, could be doing with something else altogether. Feel free to message us. You can either type in the comments below this video, you can send us a direct message on Instagram or Facebook, and we'd be more than happy to help you out. So hope that you guys have a great rest of your day and enjoy hitting those trails. I hope this helps with some of your running gait and getting into using those glutes a little bit more effectively. And if you want some one-on-one attention, we can't wait to help. Talk soon.